I'm live, but I have to close my shutters because I'm just in the sunlight. Hang on. Didn't realize that. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. Whew. I am live. Happy full moon to everybody. So, thank you. And thank you for joining. So, yeah, it's it is a it's a full moon in Aries. It is powerful. It should be eclipse, but it's not an eclipse. It's a weird anomaly, of the way the energies are, uh, and the way that how the sun or how the moon is landing. Anyways, but there is some hidden factors to it. Of course, there is. This moon is powerful, and I just wanted on YouTube. The Leo King did his presidential election for astrology. I know probably how, a lot of people may not like him. I love him. I really do. I've been following the guy since 2017 and I've, taken some things from him as well. But I love how he went through the astrology, because he went through the mundane astrology. And what I love is that he brings the mundane astrology brings in the history. And that's what I love, bringing in the history of the astrology because it shows you how things repeat. Things that he was saying is what I've been saying all along. Plus, I'm a history buff. So just bringing that part of the history in has just, really clinched a lot. And a lot of what he has said, I would say if you have time, you don't have to watch the whole thing. You could just fast forward it all if you're not a geek like me who loves to get into uh, Washington's chart and Lincoln's chart, and just looking into all of the history and how it correlates, and just information coming out that how he puts together a Pluto Uranus in Scorpio, right? Which Kamala is, and going through the history and going through the information. It's very mind opening, right? And I really enjoyed it. Anyways, if you want to have more in depth information, it's on YouTube. It's free. Um, it is the Leo King. He can be crass for some people. They may not like how he does things, but hey, I do. So anyways, but let's get into this about this full moon. This full moon is bringing in a lot to do with the ego and a lot about identification of the ego and how you identify it. And are you being led by the ego? It is in Aries. Aries is the head, it is the I am, right? Now, I am reading a book that I just happened to, for some reason, where I get off on my bus to go to work, there is a little free library, and it was open. Like it's out on the street, you can pull it. But anyways, the little door was open. I thought, oh well, that's whatever. So I was going to shut it because I don't like them to be open because I don't want the books to get ruined. So I was going to shut it, and then I saw this book sticking out, and it was by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I went, oh, interesting. So I grabbed it. It's a book on intention. It's an older book. I mean, it's one of his older books. I think it was written in 1997, if that's old for some people, but it might be. But it talks a lot about the ego and bringing in the ego. And I thought, oh, this is just such an alignment because it's bringing in the truth of who we are and the spirit of trying to feel, you know, um, wanting to feel better just to feel better, right? If that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to feel better just to feel better, the door is locked. The door is like it's not opening up. This is a moon that's going to slap you in the freaking face because it's conjunct Fortuna, it's conjunct with Chiron, and Eris is there. So it's like it's not and Eris is the Trojan horse. I mean, remember she started the Trojan War with the apple and everything. Who's the first one of all? You know, so there is always a hidden element. Fortuna is retrograde, and Fortuna is the wheel of fortune. So wherever it lands, right? It's neither good nor bad. It just lands where it needs to land. So this is an acceptance of our wheel of life. This is fated. And looking at that how things are fated in life. And this is also with, we have Saturn in a Pisces and then Neptune in Pisces. I mean, at the very end, Pluto's at the very end, Uranus. So all of these outer planets which deal with our subconscious are all at the very end of the signs. And the only one that is in its home sign is Neptune. So Neptune is the ruler of the chart. He's the one who's like, hey, I'm the boss dude. And I'm here with Saturn, and he has some power, but not a lot of power because he's in detriment. Plus, he's in his son's house. And, there might be a little bit of conflict. The eight his son, might be some issues there. But here's Saturn wanting to put up boundaries, wanting to put up, how things should look, right? And especially when it comes to our spiritual self. So you have a lot of people wanting to identify in a certain way because that's the way it's supposed to look. Again, coming in with the ego, not coming in with the spirit and the soul and the heart. So stepping into a place where this is the way I think it should look. Now, my mind runs on St. Teresa of Avila, and Carolyn Mize wrote a book of which was called The Castle, and it's about the 7 stages and going through the 7 stages of the castle from the dungeon all the way up, right? Which are basically the 7 chakras. But how you go through them, how you connect with each of those stages. Now, the reason why I bring in Saint Teresa of Avila, like she was a rebellious little thing when she was younger. I mean, she convinced her brother to do some to go talk to the Moors and um but she was stopped before that happened. And convincing different, her brother to do different acts with her and stuff. And she was also where she believed in God, but then she had a little bit of rebellious of her, and her father finally, with his strictness and over strictness, he sent her to the convent. And she kind of liked it at first because she felt like there was more freedom for her to do what she wanted to do. And through that, and through, if any, like, she is through her evolution of where she wanted, she stepped out of her ego of what she thought everything had to be in the mundane world, and really stepped into the spiritual side, into the being the not only the Gnostic, but being the person that wanted to change things. And right to a point where she wanted to start her own convent, with for young women, and really bring in how the spirit and how women had a huge part of the Bible, which is, I mean, and this is in correlation into the 1500s. It wasn't done. Women weren't allowed to talk about women and the power of the women in the Bible, but that's what she wanted to bring, and she really brought through with it through the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Now, listening to her life and the things that she did, like, she ended up going through hell. Like, people hated her. They didn't want to hear about what she was talking, what she had to say. She wrote many books, and she ended up being one of the scholars for the church and a lot of the teachings for the church. And one of her things, especially the castle, is coming through, and how we evolve through our evolution from the basis, which is our ego, to where we need to accelerate. Now, the reason I'm bringing this, and there's always a reason, hopefully, um, is that's what this full moon is getting us to do, is go through this evolution of change. And this is where the ego is coming forth. This is where the ego is getting us to look at things in a way that is not about me, just me. It's all about me. When we go to the root of the ego, it is, we look at how we can identify me, how I can identify self. How am I doing? What do I look like? What do I look like on social media? Is that the right persona I want people to see me? I mean, this is where it's getting knocked out, where we are having to come in to be the best of who we are and not go into the freakouts of war, go into the freakouts of what's going on with the government, even the Canadian government, within what's happening with the politics, but coming in as the best healer and coming in where we have our efforts and our work are good, where we can be exalted in that within our own individual lives and with the people that we affect around us is so important. And this is where the ego of falsehood, right? That, place where we can come into that, where right now in our society, it's like putting off having children, putting off having a family, and in putting that off, well, we can go through IVF and go through other things and then get pregnant and then maybe throw the child into um, daycare, and that's what they're finding. I mean, that's all part of stats. That's all coming out now, and that's all so that I can still identify with what I need to identify with myself, still identify with what I know to be true, like that I want, instead of coming into that place of wholeness and humbleness of wanting to create the connection, wanting to create the family, wanting to create the bonds, right? So this is coming into a world where we come into selfless service and having that selfless service. You got to turn that down, Mateus, please. So this is where this new moon, this full moon, this exalted moon comes forth. Well, not an exalted moon, but this super moon comes forth to get us to really step out of the ego. And this is where you're going to see a lot of people are going to get slapped in the face because it's all about ego. I find it, crazy that the young boy, 31 years old, young man, Liam from One Direction, I mean, jumped from a building and died, which is horrific. And in examining some of the information, and plus, I mean, okay, I'll admit I was a One Direction fan. Yes, I am. I loved them. And but how through him and everything that's going on in his life and through the drug addiction and everything coming out into a life of him dying, right? The whole thing of him dying. I mean, I saw Snapchats of him earlier on in the day, and he was high as a kite. Like he is a drug addict. He suffered from mental illness. Um, and you could see that. I mean, one of the reasons why One Direction kind of broke up was so much pressure was put upon them and the loss of privacy. So they, the preparedness of being in such a limelight and such a hit um, created, a persona of not allowing himself to be the true self of who he was and what he really wanted to be. And I think that's with many stars and many people who come out to be famous, is finding out that the persona that is pushed upon them is not the persona or what they themselves, their spirit, their soul. Yet there is a fated part to this, and this is a hard one for people to understand, is in that fated part, right? And that fated and free will, that choice is one and the same many times. So, in understanding that, I have a different opinion in how he died. Okay. Well, okay, love to hear it. But it is in that fated part for him in his death, right? And just on the eve of a full moon in Aries and the conjunction. And being 31, he's at the end of a Saturn return, which is a struggle. It's a huge struggle for many, and many who are famous. Many famous people die at the age of 31. Um, and it's at the end of their Saturn return. On many times, it's a realization of where they thought they should be, and they're not, and that not only mentally, but spiritually. It's very unfortunate that he lost his life. I do believe that he had some help in it. Probably. I mean, there's drugs everywhere. I mean, who brought the drugs? Who was with him? There was that young girl who was with him. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to do with it. Same with John Belushi. Same with Whitney Houston. I mean, there's a hand in it in some way, and then there's also that. See, how do I put this? Um, Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about it, where he's decided not to drink anymore and stop drinking in his life. And it was very important for him to do that. And a lot of people don't realize that he used to have, he used to drink quite a bit in the evening and stuff after, coming back from teaching and stuff all day. And he decided that in order for him to become a better spiritual teacher, that he needed to stop drinking. And that's his intention. That was the intention he's putting out there. Now, the thing is, many things happen where, a few months after that, he went to the store to buy a six pack, and he didn't have cash, and he always carried cash on him. If anybody knew, or met him, he always had cash. He went to the bank on a weekly basis and took out a lot of cash because he would actually give his cash away. He had different people who he would help out that he would give cash to. Anyways, the thing is that when you made a decision not to do something in that intention, right? Now, here is a young boy who fame and fortune, and we've seen it with Justin Bieber. We've seen it with, John Belushi keeps coming to mind. Whitney Houston comes to mind. Her daughter, uh, the singer of Nirvana, all of these beautiful people. Amy Weinstein, um, also, not that she died of a drug overdose. I'm not sure if she did or not. I believe she was trying to be clean, but there was other elements of eating disorder that she had as well, which causes huge issues. All these young people just, dying after their Saturn return or later on, um, is interesting. And in the choices, where this is where this moon is really going to show people on where they need to step out of the ego. And stepping out of the ego, that means you're stepping out of a persona. And I'm going to bring in St. Teresa of Avila, stepping out of that persona of what people expect of you. Expect of what they believe you should be, or believe how you should act. And this is where, even, I mean, St. Teresa of Avila, like, young, royalty would come to the convent, and royalty would expect that the sisters would wait on them hand and foot and kneel upon them. And St. Teresa of Avila said, "No, you're not God. I'm not kneeling before you. My vow is to Jesus Christ, not to you." Which didn't go over very well in the 1500s, and this is right at the same time that King Henry VIII was making a change, and this is all at the end of oh, thank you, Pluto in Capricorn, and going into, like, all of these events of, like, no, I am not choosing you to be my God. I'm not choosing you to be my directive. And this full moon is getting us to see that with all of it, and saying, I am not allowing this to be my directive, and I'm making a change. King Henry VIII it was very much he wasn't going to do it because he didn't want the church to tell him who he could marry and who he couldn't marry. And he wanted to have to be, I mean, he married his dead brother's wife, Arthur. And Arthur was to become king. And Catherine, of course, was his wife, but he died. So it was at that time you would marry your brother's wife if you weren't married, or you'd have to take care of her. So he ended up marrying her. Um, and it wasn't really a love relationship. There wasn't really an attraction there to her. And she was an extremely devout Catholic. And, for Henry, he wanted something more. And he married Anne Boleyn secretly. And then they had the wedding blessed afterwards, I think in January of the following year. Well, it's the power, it's the lineage, right? You want it. Uh the thing is that she was of Spain, right? So having that alliance with Spain was very important at that time for England, and to keep that alliance, right? And so the thing is that if I have my daughter married to the king, I'm not going to attack you. Basically, it. So having those alliances were very important. One of the reasons why Queen Elizabeth the First, who is a Pisces, Pluto in Aries, didn't marry, is that she didn't want to have those alliances with any other country. Plus, also for her being a female to get married would have taken away her power as well. So she was not going to give up that power. Her whole intent was to create a powerful country, which she did, which, with England, and making England a very powerful country. And that was one of the reasons why she didn't marry. Anyways, I know, weird facts in my head. But that's, going back to this full moon. This full moon is, in the world of selfless service and coming into that. We also have the comet that has been being seen the last little while. And the comet is the tail is aimed at Aries. And so, and they're calling it an anti-tail, which means that the earth is already going through the dust of the comet that it already went through. So it's already gone through, and we are just seeing it even though it's gone. Kind of weird. So this is where we are finding that we are having to be an exalted being, and having to be that exalted being. Those who are Aries with that tail facing the Aries, or if you have an Aries moon, Aries rising, or if you have an Aries sun, you might find it very difficult in order for you to do this, because of that Aries energy of the I am, of being the wanting to be first, wanting to be that one, right? And we also have, where from September to November, which I talked about many, many times, that we are in the time of Hades. We are in the underworld and getting through it and being able to receive how things are, and not rejecting that fate, not rejecting the fate of the war, not rejecting the fate that we're going to be seeing, like an avian flu or any of that. It's not wishing it was different, but knowing that this is what has to happen in order for the transformation and changes that are needed in order for us to exalt to a better place. And that we are working through this, and we're going to have the next 16 years or so to work through it with a Pluto in Aquarius. So this moon is really a big kickoff for a lot of change, a lot of coming into one's spiritual self and stepping into that truth of you, and coming into a humbleness and humility of selflessness, and this is also where what we're seeing within our society, where parents have put their children into daycare at 2 and 3 months old, that the detachments, the mental illness that is coming out in many of the adolescent children, in and around the world, and how the world, this is fated, is going to pay for that. We're going to pay for that. And that's also with a lot of young people coming into their first Saturn return, where the mental illness that is going to come forth with that, especially after the age of 25. And that's where a lot of people have the psychosis, schizophrenia, different forms of bipolar can really come out. And we have to look at the triggers that have happened to them as a young person and how they were raised. And I know, and this could be raised through divorce, through a parent dying. This could be through having to be in daycare, being raised by a single mom, and they've had to be in daycare all day long. And not, mom comes home and she's tired and exhausted and everything else. So, not having that fullness of the selflessness of service from a mother or from a father, and the breakup of how the family unit has been chopped up and broken apart. And we're seeing that, and the full moon is bringing this out because this is all about the ego, about what I want, how I look, what I need. This is what I need to have, and I need to look this beautiful, you know, in order for me to be a part of this world. And this is where things are going to start getting really crazy, where people are not wanting to give up their mundane world, or not wanting to give up their muggle stuff or how they are seen or perceived. But the door is being shut on this because the universe, the divine God, is saying, no, I need you to start looking at what is the truth. That's why, and I know the Leo King talked about it, why part of this election is on abortion and what abortion is, and how that is becoming a huge fight in the United States, and it's coming to a huge fight in and around even in Canada, right? And all of that. Hey, Lexi. So this evolutionary of ownership of one's self, ownership. Do I have ownership over that child that is growing within me? When it is within its own unique soul. And if you talk to many who are Hindu, anybody who practice any of the even with Christians or Muslims, and that, of when the spirit enters that child and becomes its own unique soul, and you are only the carrier of that soul, you're not the owner of that soul, which can get some people like really angry, upset, because again, we're going back to the selflessness. We're going back to where this is my body. I have a right to do it. I have a right for this and I have a right for that. I'm not making an argument. I'm just showing you what is coming out of all of this. And then Eris in with this new moon is conjunct at 24 degrees with Futana, with Chiron, which is the key of wanting to open this door to say, well, this has to be the truth. But Chiron is saying, I'm not opening that door because it's not the truth. It's not the truth. So it's interesting how all of this and this full moon and the activation of this moon is coming forth in order to smack people up the side of the head, to awaken many to the mental illnesses that are there around them, and to bring forth a newness and a renewal of saying, you know what, maybe that is wrong. Maybe I don't have that, that right to push that agenda on somebody else. Interesting. Let's see. Let's pull out some cards. So everybody should have gotten their full moon reading, and I did it differently. In this full moon reading, I wrote out the information for them, and I included things from the beginning of the month. And so it's sort of a little bit of a review as well for them. And I wrote that all out. And then I videotaped the reading for them. So I did it a little bit different this time. I hope they enjoyed it. It's something I'm going to do again next month. And it's, I don't know, I just found it easier. So we'll see. And there's only 4 readings left for the rest of the year for the astro readings. So there's 2 in November and 2 in December, and then that's it. We're done for 2024, man. There is no more. Ooh, we got the Lover card. So the Lover card comes in, and the Lover card is the I am, it's part of the I am card. The Lover card comes in and wanting to bring in the balance of love and around you. Now, with the Lover card, let's bring in, it is ruled by Gemini, Mercury, and Venus. Interesting. Because it's Mercury who's going to get us through this, because Mercury is the only planet that can go to the underworld, right? So it's through Mercury. Mercury's the god of communication and commerce and being aware of what you are being tricked about, right? So in comes the Lover card. So the Lover card, I'm thinking, okay, am I being tricked into things? Am I being told about things that that I should know or don't know? So this is green kyanite, larimar, and rose quartz. Nice. So if you're looking at essential oils, I would definitely look into a rose geranium essential oil at this time, especially during this full moon, to help you to connect to higher self, help you to open up, and also ground. The geranium will really help you to ground so that you are having a better connection with your divine and your higher self. So bringing that forth, and that with that, especially with a Lover card that just came out, and along with that comes the 4 of Pentacles. So what's holding me back from going forward? What am I hanging on to too tight that's not allowing me to step forward in love? It's to step forward in that newness, right? Why am I not allowing myself to have my heart open up? And here right beside me is my rose quartz hearts. I have a couple of them around the house, but taking that and just like, oh, okay, I need to open my heart. I need to allow myself to be open and to be honest, and step forward with my intent on where and what I want to be doing. And that can be like, holy fuck, I don't want to do that because I'm still attached to how my house looks. I'm still attached to how my job is supposed to be. I'm still attached to how I'm supposed to look or where I'm supposed to be. These are things that I have to look at within my own self and be honest with. If you're not being honest with yourself, if you're not being honest with that Lover card is going to be looking at the choices, what you are wanting to celebrate, but you are being restrained. Things in your life are restraining you from being within that higher self, right? And then in end with that all, moon fucking card. The moon card. The moon card is the intuition, is the depths, it's going to the deepness, right? And a lot of times we don't want to do that. We don't want to go into the depths. If you are able to get the castle, and I think I got it here, I'm looking at it, the castle by Carolyn Mize. Just one second, I'm going to just show it to you. Boop, 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 boop. Don't go anywhere, anybody. Oh. Everything falls. And of course, I'm old and stiff right now. finding out that I have freaking arthritis in my left hip. That's always fun to find out. Anyways, we'll deal with that. So this book, Entering the Castle by Carolyn Myers, it's a it's not an easy read. Just saying, it is not an easy read. It is one that thank you, Lexi. It is one that you really have to sometimes read over a chapter in order to get an understanding. But Carolyn Myers, when she wrote this, she was channeling Saint Teresa. And the thing is, if anybody who ever follows Caroline, like she's a very down to earth, basic, like she's a down to earth woman. Anybody who said to her, "Oh, well, I channeled God," or "I channeled," she'd be like, "Shut the fuck up. Let's get down to basis and stuff." So she didn't think, when people were saying that they're channeling, it was very hard for her to understand or believe. It wasn't until it happened to her in her own office. And she felt that strong presence of Saint Teresa come to her, and she speaks about it in some of her old videos on how Teresa came to her, and she was just like, okay, this is just really bloody weird. And stepping into allowing, because she was writing another book at the time, and Saint Teresa said, "No, you got to write this book, because this book has to come back out to the people so that they have an understanding of how they can go through their own growth." Now, part of this, if anybody took my Journey Club, the original Journey Club with me, it was very very similar. 8 weeks. It was 8 weeks. Very similar of getting you going through your own castle, going through your own chakras in order to get to where you need it to be, in allowing for yourself to let go of the ego. And it's, I always said, when people took the Journey Club, if you got past week 4 or even week 3, you're doing damn well, because it wasn't easy. And the Journey Club, my original Journey Club that I did, it was channeled. It was the information came to me to write this out. And I haven't really taught it in its full essence for a number of years, because it is a difficult one. It does take a lot of commitment. It's one that I've tried to teach it in different ways, but it definitely has to be taught week by week. It can't be taught like even me trying to do the 1 week one. No, it has to go with first week, second week, third week, fourth week. Even though I've tried to do it in different ways, because either my ego is thinking that, well, I need to make it easier for people, where looking at things from Entering the Castle to this book. This is the book that I found, The Power of Intention. And look at it. It's really in great shape. There's a little bit of highlighting in it, but not a whole heck of a lot, you know. But it's in pristine, and it was a gift. It was I love it. I love it when people write in the book, and you get a book, and it's like a Christmas gift, 2009. So this was given to this person in 2009 as a Christmas gift. And this was written in 2004. I'm sorry, I thought 1997, but 2004. I was probably thinking in 97 because it was Owen's birthday. But it's another good book. So I got 2 books that are coming out that I think for me, they're coming to me for me to really take a deeper look into my own spiritual journey, which I'm on day 226 of Bible study, which has been really interesting, because the Old Testament, man, they're crazy. Man, you thought we were bad? The shit that they did was pretty crazy in itself. Let's go back to the moon card. So the moon card is Pisces. So the moon, you would think it'd be Cancer, but it's not. It's ruled by Pisces because it's ruled by the depths, by the dreams and the intuition. And that is Neptune, who is the ruler of this chart, who's the ruler right now of of the energies that we are going through. It is the second slowest planet, for moving around the sun. And this is where it's really getting us to look into the restraints, the restraints that are coming in. What are those restraints? So that we can love, so that we can nurture ourselves and nurture others unconditionally, selflessly. But we have to look into this part, and this is kyanite, labradorite, and moonstone. And clary sage comes to mind. So if you're wanting to use some clary sage in a diffuser, just 2 drops. Don't do anything more than that, because clary sage can actually knock you out. And clary sage is different than sage, and it's a different family. So bringing clary sage in with some rose geranium would be very, very nice, very nice. It'd be a very earthy type of smell, but not as earthy as what patchouli would be. Patchouli is like very earth and very like, ooh, bring you, like I got like, ooh, bring you down to that drum beat kind of thing. So that's not where this wants you to go. This is where it wants you to go into the magic, the magician, to allow for you to look at the changes that you need to bring forth into your life. But it is that subconscious, like the moon card and the lover card together. It's not an easy. You think, people look at it. Most tarot readers are like, oh, that's great. I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, it's not. It's great, but you got the 4 of Pentacles there. So there's a lot of shit you got to be dealing with in this world in order to get through. If you're not dealing with it, if you are bypassing or doing spiritual bypassing, yeah, this is going to kick you in the butt, because you want to attain all this beauty and all this greatness in your life, but you got to do the work. You can't attain this or think this is like where I want, I just want this. I just want to look good. I just want to be beautiful all the time, you know. But this is like with these cards here, the lover, the 4 of Pentacles, and the moon are saying, no, you got some work to do. The true beauty, as what your grandmother and what your mother would have said, is the beauty is within you. And you're always, as a teenager, oh, you gotta say that because you're my mom. But the beauty is within, there is a beauty that we all have within us. Yes, there's an outward attraction, and definitely there is an outward attraction for people. But there is something when somebody comes in and you look at them and it goes beyond their physical beauty, and you're just like, man, they're fucking awesome. They got something there, right? And you just want to be around them. You just want, they just have that attraction. And for many, when that happens, is like they get very scared of that person. They don't want to be around them. So it's interesting, but that's okay. It brings in your true beauty. So go forth, have a fabulous full moon. On my Facebook page, you might have to scroll around on it. I did put up some rituals and stuff for you to do and to look at. I wrote something out there for the full moon as well. So have a beautiful, beautiful day, and embrace that of who you are and all you say and all you be and all you do, because you're all beautiful, sexy, scrumptious, luscious, beautiful goddesses and gods. So have a blessed one, everybody. And we will talk to you probably maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Tomorrow's a huge, crazy, busy day for me. It's another day off, but I have a lot of errands, and my errands are all done via the bus. So I am bussing all over town tomorrow. So that's going to be a fun day in itself. Have a blessed one, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Love you.